Morning. So every year, Miss Sanborn and I are slotted into this particular Tuesday, and as we prepared for this, realized that we've had a lot of FaceTime in assembly over the first 2 weeks of school, and I don't know why it's different, but a meeting is always more nerve-wracking than assembly. I just was saying to somebody down here, before the very first time I got up here to do a morning meeting, I got up, and it's a little bit hard to sort of pick out all the faces, but I looked down, and this one girl who was on the soccer team I was coaching looked up at me and said, "You're gonna choke." So that was the first time I got up here, and I made it through that. We've talked about a lot of really, we've stood up here and said, don't do this, don't do that to start the year. And there are a few more topics we want to hit on, but in a less serious fashion, hopefully today. Before we get into that, though, we just want to share sort of our perspective that the start of the year has been really, really great. It's been 2 weeks. This is 2 full weeks for everybody who's come, all the people who came on Wednesday, almost 3 weeks for people who arrived early for preseason. We've thrown some changes at you all, the returners, new students. It's all been new, and you guys, we'd like to welcome you, and you've brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm. You now get a sense of what makes Taft great. You saw it from the outside, and now you felt it. I want to thank all of you who are returners for everything you've done to get the year off to a good start. From the first day when new students are arriving, meeting us, having conversations with us about things we've asked you to do differently, helping students find their classes on the opening days, leading teams on the athletic fields, helping students adjust to life away from home for the first time, the awesome assemblies, the awesome videos that were shown at assembly. I mean, we get that all year long, and that's a treat. So we're fortunate to have so much help from all of you who've come back, and we just want to thank you and say we're thrilled with the way the year has gotten going. Today we want to cover 4 topics. Not the most exciting, but dress code, permissions, social media, and cell phones. If that causes you to roll your eyes, you should have seen the faculty in the open faculty meeting when we listed those topics. Mr. Frew just started whistling. I've never heard Mr. Frew whistle. He's quite a whistler. Miss Tarrant had a giggle fit, and Mr. Laner just yelled out, "You're boring!" We'll try a little bit better and take a different approach today. The first thing I want to talk about today is cell phones. I've hit on that a little bit early on in the year in an assembly. The spirit of the rule is really, people have asked questions. Can I have it in the front circle? Can I have my phone somewhere else? Are you serious?
Okay, later. I can't talk now.
Nice, really nice. That's not the spirit of the rule right there. The spirit of the rule is you should not get in the way of face-to-face human interactions. If a phone goes off in a classroom or a meeting, gonna hold on to that for a little while. That's not okay. People walking through the halls on the phones. I actually haven't seen anyone yet this year, which is awesome, and I thank you for that. Have seen a few texters. Please keep that to private spaces of school. And those of you in the dining hall or in meeting who might have pulled out your phone to check the time and put it right back in your pocket, we are trying to be more, to give a better understanding of the multiple uses of cell phones. And as faculty, we talked about what is the spirit of the rule, and that's what we want to come down on. And we haven't had to a whole lot. So I want to thank you for that and keep that up, because one of the things that makes Taft really special is the face-to-face interaction between humans.
Okay, second, so we want to talk a little bit about social media. So a quick story to start. In the fall of my senior year in college is when Facebook had expanded from initially, starting at Harvard and then expanded to other places. I have this really vivid memory that fall of sitting down with one of my best friends who showed me his profile and then helped me set up my own. So anyway, after graduation, this guy's name's Pat. So after graduation, Pat gets hired by Morgan Stanley and becomes an alumni interviewer. And part of his job was to not only look at, obviously, resumes and references, but also to look at people's online identities. So through our Dartmouth network, he could access information about kids' applying to work at Morgan Stanley that otherwise he might not have been able to access. True. So what does that story mean for you? It means a couple of things. It means that you're held accountable for the identity that's created by you and also for you online. And that's pretty important to just be aware of. It means that if a friend posts a compromising picture of you, that picture becomes part of what people who don't even know you think about you. And it means that if you even jokingly post something that's sort of mean on someone else's profile, that becomes a record of how you treat people. And it's just important to be aware that that's true, whether that's your intention or not. So what do you need to do? I think you should be aware of your audience when you post, when you tweet, when you blog, when you message online. Your audience is wide and it's always changing. And I think you need to play a role as an informed citizen and as an author every time you contribute to an online community. I'll add, I guess, that many of you are really positive, obviously online. I don't know, we don't police Facebook as a school in any respect, but occasionally things come to us and then we have to respond. And, things I know people are posting, I assume today, are things like happy birthday, by the way, happy birthday, Marcus Klotz. And, but aside from that, things to think about with respect to social media are that there are occasionally consequences, sometimes with the school, sometimes legally, right? So this is not just about us at Taft. It's certainly not just about us at all. Beyond that, though, and I think maybe more importantly, is that there are moral implications. So how does what you do online impact other people? And then ethical considerations, which are how does what you post online impact the community you're a part of? So that's that for social media.
Bueller. Bueller.
Here.
Bueller. 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 Bueller.
Here.
Bueller. Bueller.
He's sick. My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid is going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night. I guess it's pretty serious.
Thank you, Simone.
No problem whatsoever.
Bueller. Bueller.
For those of you who haven't seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, classic movie, you need to get that into your rotation. We don't want to lose you. That's why we have rules about permissions. My poor students have been subjected to that way cliched, lame teacher joke for many years. But we don't want to lose you. And with 587 students, we have to have a weird way of doing things. You guys, I think, have been terrific about day permissions. You've learned that system, coming in, signing out the cards. I've had a few questions about day permissions. When can you leave the dorm in the morning? 6 a.m. What if you want to take a day permission, like on a Sunday morning, the duty office is closed? You have two options. One is get a card the night before and sign it out. The other is, at a minimum, slip a piece of paper under the door, letting us know what you're doing. And do you need to sign out if you're going to an away game? No, and that's a good question. If you're leaving with an athletic team to an event, it is your coach's responsibility to keep track of you. If you happen to be going on a class trip later on in the term, your coach will take, or your teacher will take care of the sign out. Otherwise, we need you to sign out anytime you're leaving. In the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, there's some good scenes with him cruising around with his friend Cameron in a sweet car. Some people have asked some questions about auto permissions. The default setting is you should never get in a car with anyone other than your parents or a faculty member. You're welcome to do that. Your parents and faculty member are always covered. Beyond that, we have to have specific permission for you, registered by your parents. And if you don't know what that is, you shouldn't be getting in a car with anybody else until you're absolutely sure you have that permission. Particularly if it's another student. The sort of law guides us on that one, and it's really restrictive. We need written permission from both sides, both sets of parents, both the driver and the passenger. Finally, I sent out an email about weekend permissions yesterday. This is the first open weekend of the year. You get to take a break, go home, go visit a friend if you want. You're welcome to stay on campus and mellow out here too. A few guidelines. If you owe a penalty crew, or you have a Sunday morning study hall, you may not sign out for a weekend. You're restricted to campus. So incentive to not get too many conduct grades or get a Sunday morning study hall. We need to have you communicate with us by noon on Wednesday. Turn in a card to the duty office. We will accept late submissions till the end of the day Thursday. If your plans change at some point, come in and let us know. Talk to us about what your new plan is. We'll adjust the card. Friday morning, your plans have to be fixed. We don't allow changes after Friday morning. So if you all of a sudden want to go to someone else's house, it's too late. We don't have time to handle all the changes and invitations and permissions required. So you need to be set by Friday morning. The two exceptions we will make, you can cancel your plans and stay at school. If you do that, come to the duty office. Don't just tell a dorm parent, come into the duty office. And the second one is you can always go home with your parents. If your parents contact us after the Friday morning deadline, we'll let you go home in that situation. So if you have any questions at all about signing out, come to the duty office at any time. Ms. McClellan, Mr. Blomberg, Mr. Davis, and the two of us can all answer your questions. One last thing to put on the radar for looking forward, we're going to switch to an electronic sign-out system later on in the term. This first weekend, we're going to go with our old system, so we want to stick with what we know is going to work when a lot of people sign out, but just keep your eyes open for that change going forward.
Okay, and last, we want to talk a little bit about dress code. You guys look great, but a couple reminders about things that might be different. So I'd like to invite our first contestant forward, please.
This is Willie in a lower mid, very overly enthusiastic apparently. Looking good. Sneakers, okay. The shirt, untucked. Hat on during the class day. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go back and change. Back to your room and change, please. Can we have our second contestant? Representing the Woo Building and Argentina, apparently, Mr. Michael McAloon. He looks good. Although you're wearing, the tie looks nice, the shirt's tucked in, everything's good. That sweatshirt can't go. Sweatshirts are not allowed. Go back to your room and change, please. Our next contestant, Miss Luetta Chickadons. That is what we would call an immodest décolletage. That is not okay. Cover yourself up, please. Go back to your room and change. Oh.
You have kind of an uncomfortable contestant coming forward.
Super fashionable. Representing Upper North Street, Miss Helena Pfeiffer. Accessorizing nicely with the sweatshirt, but clearly, as the fingertips would suggest, the dress is too short. Oh, that's not okay. That's an overshare. Please go back to your room and change. From the outer reaches of campus, representing The Rock, Miss Hannah Valdez. Very nice. Oh, those are denim. Denim is a fabric, not a color. Denim's not allowed. You're gonna have to go back and change. Sorry about that. Our final contestant, the most fashionable lady on campus, a paragon of fashion, coming up from the language wing, Miss Luz Lara.
I think we have a winner. We have a winner.
anybody ever has questions about fashion and dress style, Miss Laura's the one to ask. Thank you, faculty.
Thank you, faculty. So some of those are sort of extremes. If you have questions about dress code, please come see us. Just to recap, and then we'll send you on your way. We've covered 4 different areas of school life, some of which are specific and some of which are just related in more nebulous way to school culture and school norms. So we've talked a little bit about cell phones, right? Our community is built on relationships formed in part by face-to-face interaction. Cell phones should not be used publicly because it interrupts that fabric, which is really critical and special about our community. So that's 1. 2, social media is a tool. In the same way that you can use a pen to write a sonnet or to give someone a grade or to poke someone's eye out, you can use technology in a similar fashion. So be intentional about how you use that. 3rd, with respect to permissions, make sure you let us know where you're going, communicate. And 4th, please follow the dress code. And if you're not in the dress code, just expect to hear from us and from the faculty and from other students potentially. So the purpose of talking about the nitty-gritty today is to suggest that doing the right thing goes a long way. Standing up for someone who's being teased, turning in money you found on the steps in the dormitory, treating people with civility in the servery, dressing in a way that allows you to spend more time on the serious business of learning. These are all examples of just doing the right thing, and it goes a long way. In the opening week of school, you've heard from Mr. Mack, who suggests that our community is about celebrating individuality and also about building trust. You heard from Betsy and Andrew, who treat each other with such grace and who talked about tradition and innovation and gratitude. And while today we talked more specifically about rules, we talk about them because they're in some ways the building blocks of communities, and they allow us to live in communion with one another. So with any questions, thoughts, or ideas, as always, please come see us and have a great Tuesday.